the good news, it isn't straight up a war right now because really it's only one side that's doing a lot of the fighting. We saw some tariffs that hit India pretty hard the first time Trump was in office, and India initiated retaliatory tariffs, and you began to see both sides escalating. Here, India is keeping its head down. They're taking this very maturely, trying to find a pathway through on the trade agreement, but also looking for other partnerships where they can lash onto and thinking about domestic reforms as well. So I wouldn't say we're quite in a full-scale war yet. India's trying to find the pathway through. Hopefully we can, but we've got a very effervescent president that has been unwilling so far to sign what sounds like it had been the development of a pretty good deal just about a month ago.
So, Rick, tell me, do you think a U.S.-India trade deal is still possible given the fracture that we see right now, or has that window already closed?
It's still very much possible. It feels like some of the things that the Trump administration has been pushing India for on agriculture market access, some things that India would consider deep, deep red lines. As you know, about half of India's labor market is still in basic agriculture. They can't get to export markets. And so if the Indian market gets flooded with American agriculture, that would be very dangerous for the livelihoods for a lot of Indians that don't have alternatives. So India hit some red lines on some of the areas the Trump administration was pushing on trade. But what India would like to do is put enough sweeteners on the pot, for instance, announcing substantial increases in hydrocarbon purchases from the United States, defense military purchases, maybe even cataloging certain Indian private sector investments that can be made in the U.S. market. These are all things that certainly would hit President Trump favorably, and hopefully that'll be enough to get a deal across the finish line. So still possible, but the agriculture tariffs, dairy has been very difficult to try to fight through.
Were you encouraged to see this 2+2 intersessional dialogue taking place between the U.S. and India? Perhaps that is a signal for global markets that there is still an opportunity to make progress here.
Yeah, you got a lot of small and medium level meetings that are happening on a regular basis. Clearly, the main driver has been the trade agreement discussions, but you did have the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting just a short while back. The 2+2 is quite positive. Our Treasury Department continues to engage. There's been other visits that have been planned so far. So there is a lot of the day-to-day stuff that's happening right now. But the trade certainly is damaging. There's another element that we haven't talked about as well, which it sounds like you're going to see when the numbers come out, a really significant decline of Indians coming here and studying in the United States. And that obviously has a huge positive benefit for the U.S. economy as well. So there is a lot of other negatives even outside the trade agreement, but at least we're trying to keep the habits of cooperation with other departments and other dialogues moving ahead. The 2+2 is our main bilateral security mechanism, and the Quad, and all eyes to see whether or not we get a Quad leaders meeting happening in India later this year, as President Trump has repeatedly promised.
Indeed, and one of the things that you have been writing about at CSIS recently is this issue of security. You've said the U.S.-India trade is more than just commerce, it's about security as well. Do you think this escalation puts defense ties and intelligence sharing at risk too?
I suspect not yet. It could still happen, and it may slow down future areas of cooperation. But when we both think about the major security threat across the Indo-Pacific, China comes up constantly for both countries. So we do have the shared view that China presents a major danger commercially, militarily, and so finding areas of cooperation. India feels direct pressure from China in ways the United States can't even understand. They've had a conflict. There's only one country in the last 40 years that's actually had conflict with military conflict with China, and that's India. Certainly, they're in a period of rapprochement right now, which is great to see for two huge neighbors. But I do think there's enough substance behind military cooperation that unless things escalate even further out of control, if we can save trade agreement, if we can keep some level of momentum and positivity, I think defense and military has got to be the area that you can bet on, where we got such overlap in interest that they're going to try to find some good ways to cooperate and collaborate.
Rick, it's a pretty optimistic view. The bears would argue here that this trade war between the U.S. and India has pushed India closer to Russia and to China. That's not good for the U.S.
Yeah, I think the rapprochement with China began even before President Trump was elected. Things were pretty tense. High-level negotiations were practically cut off entirely because of the flare-up of tensions along the border and a range of other issues. With Russia, a lot of that rebuilding, too, began to happen when India saw an opportune moment to take very low-cost energy, fertilizer, and other things when Russia was just after the invasion. But you do see India also developing deeper ties with a range of other partners the United States considers friendly. In recent years, India signed trade agreements with Australia, with the Swiss-led EFTA group, with UAE, the UK. So I would say India is looking for its partners where they can find it. I think, with China, there is an upper limit on how far they can go because they've got longstanding issues at the border with the status of Bhutan, with the Dalai Lama, that really are pretty intractable. And I think India kind of understands that. But look, two big countries with militaries that are pointing weapons at each other. We'd love to see if they can begin to de-escalate, and you've seen that in a pretty steady manner.